Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Our presentation today is called A Perfect Equation, Adding OER into Math Courses. And a little bit about us. We're both from Madison Area Technical College, which is located in Madison, Wisconsin. We're a mid-sized technical college with about 33,000 total enrollment and a lot less than that in full-time enrollment. My name is Rachel Becker, and I'm the Copyright and Open Educational Resources Librarian here at the college.
I'm Holly Deering. I'm the Associate Manager of Operations here at Madison College. So I work with the textbook rental program that we have at the college. Today we'll be talking about the motivation for change, why our math department made the switch to OER, the departmental workflow and collaborations that were done to do so, the outcomes, and then looking ahead to the future. Why OER? Why did we start with OER in the math department? So one of the biggest reasons is because our math department predominantly uses Pearson. And a lot of the editions being used by the math department were old editions that we can no longer get from Pearson. And so the math department started exploring some other options. Another big component was the math department was using My Math Lab. And they got a lot of feedback from students that students did not like My Math Lab. One of the reasons, technical issues, the process of having to download those codes. So we use Missouri Book Systems and Vital Source for the My Math Lab digital codes. And that was very difficult for our students to figure out that process of how to actually access their courseware with those digital codes. Another reason is cost. So our college does have a textbook rental program that's operated by the college, and our college is very concerned about affordability. And so that's one of the things that is always pushed towards our faculty, is being conscious of the cost of the materials used if they're not included in the rental program. And My Math Lab was not used in the rental program because it's a one-time access code. And so that cost was very expensive to students, especially students that had to retake a math course. And then our faculty also did not like the formatting and some of the lack of learning support in the WebAssign. So those were some of the pushes for OER.
And from the other side of this, we obviously saw cost savings for students, which Holly talked about. And circling back to the My Math Lab codes, we were seeing students that were having issues with stable internet access at home. Although we're mostly in a larger urban area, we do have students who can't afford internet, or they're living in northern Wisconsin, which has less reliable internet. And it was easier for them to access OER that they could have offline or in a printed format. And that was a big consideration for our faculty as well. Flexibility for faculty was another big key point that we heard over and over again, was that faculty wanted something that they could make their own, that they could add in the examples that they wanted, they could tailor it to their own instruction style, and it overall contributed to academic freedom on their part. And this led into an improved experience for students. We'll share some of the numbers in a little bit that reflect how students perceive this change. But overall, I've heard students in the library that will talk about, well, this class is using My Math Lab, but this other one is using My Open Math. I'm going to take the one with My Open Math because it's just so much easier. And I know I can access everything that I need on day one. I don't need to worry about this extra cost of the access code or this technical barrier that is put up for students with the My Math Lab code. As Holly said, there's a lot of ways that students have to go through and a lot of hoops that they have to jump through just to access that code. And we see that students struggle with that quite heavily, especially in the first part of the semester. So our whole journey on this started in 2021, when, as Holly said, Pearson started changing their model, their access model and publishing model. And the math faculty picked up on that, and they wanted to take a proactive approach to this so that they could have something in place right away that they could use that would be beneficial for the faculty and the students. So the math department started by forming a textbook committee to evaluate the textbook options. And they went through and selected courses that they felt would be good ones to look at for OER. And these were primarily ones that have high enrollment. They have a lot of adjunct faculty that teach it, so making it more streamlined would be easier on the faculty, especially ones that come in often a couple days before the classes start. And they selected elementary algebra, intermediate algebra, college algebra, math analysis, trigonometry, and basic statistics as ones to target first. And then in spring 2023, which is the last semester that we had data from, about 142 math sections total had, out of that, about 28 are using OER textbooks. So obviously there's a lot more progress to make in this area, but we do see as the ball's continuing to roll that faculty and students are enjoying the OER over our former publishing process. And throughout during this process, faculty have often said to us that this fosters collaboration on their part, and that colleagues are working with colleagues and meeting colleagues that they've never met before or didn't interact with on a meaningful level. And this is because the MyOpenMath requires coding, it requires customization, and a lot of faculty enjoy that. Some faculty, that's not really their thing, but they're fine with those who do enjoy it taking that on.
For this upcoming spring of 2024, the math department is asking more faculty to use OER. So as Rachel stated, those courses listed above were some of the pilot courses. And so there were key leaders of those courses that created the course shell for MyOpenMath, and then utilizing the OER book and creating the curriculum for those courses. So now that they have some semesters underneath them and that they've tested it out and they've received positive student feedback, they've passed that along to other faculty within that department, and they're asking them now to use the same materials for their upcoming sections for this spring. So as adoptions are coming in, we are seeing more instructors this semester switching from MyMathLab to MyOpenMath and then using OER, whether it's from MyOpenStax or OER that the faculty is actually creating themselves. So as time goes on, we do expect to see those numbers increase where we're seeing more using OER than non-OER materials.
So when I started out this process, and we'll talk about the workflow in a minute here, I started out by speaking with the faculty, getting a sense of what they were currently using and what they liked about it and what they didn't like about it. And that gave me a good idea as someone who is not familiar with math, but is familiar with finding OER. I was able to look at the table of contents for the commercial textbooks, for example, and figure out exactly which processes the faculty felt were important to them and what they wanted in there. So some key repositories that we found resources in, of course, was OpenStax. There's some really good content in there. And the thing that faculty really enjoy about OpenStax is that they can just take the textbook as is and use it. And that was really important in a lot of ways. And it was also, they're able to print off copies, and the bookstore is able to include those free copies in the rental program. The Open Textbook Library was one that I found a lot of resources in for kind of the niche courses, I call them, or the ones that don't have as much robust OER out there. The college algebra, there's a lot of good stuff out there. Also, the open resources for community college algebra was another resource that I found some really good content in. And the American Institute of Mathematics has a whole list of math textbooks that are open that they've reviewed and approved and say fit their curriculum and fit the standards that need to be in there. And that was a key component for faculty when they would go through and find and establish buy-in from their colleagues on this, was that there was a respected professional organization that they had already gone through and said that they were respected and that the materials were good quality, because we know that can be an issue is making the case for OER that they're as good or better than published content. And the LaGuardia OER seminar was another resource that I found a lot of stuff in. So in terms of the workflow that we used, we kind of got into the groove with this over the past couple of years, and we've continued to use this because it works really well. And it started out with the math department identifying courses that they wanted to explore adoptions for. Then they communicated with me, the OER librarian, and I performed a search for OER where I really delved into all the different repositories. I looked for different keywords that I pulled out of the textbook, and I did use a review sheet for this, which I can post a link in the chat after we're done here. But basically the worksheet went through and it presented different choices that I found, and then it presented whether they had auxiliary materials, whether it had reviews included, and those sorts of things. So it made it really easy for the faculty who were doing the textbook reviews to say, oh, this is something that we want to explore, or this isn't something that we want to explore. Then from there, the math department evaluated the different options together as a group, and then sent those, the final ones that they wanted to explore, to Holly in the bookstore.
Once we got the adoption request, we then ordered copies both for the instructor and to be part of our textbook rental program. And so like I said, we do have a textbook rental program here. So students pay $7 per degree credit to rent majority of their materials. And so these OER print books were able to be part of the rental program because in multiple surveys that we've done with our students, math is one of the areas that we have found that our students do want a physical book to go along with their course. So now we're going to show you a video here of My Open Math, and this is one of the shells that one of our instructors has created. We're just going to play a short clip from this video.
Okay. Enrolls them in my particular section in My Open Math. No course IDs, no passwords unless you want to create that option. So it's been a really great resource and less frustration when registering for the class. So what's great is that this has kind of a very basic layout. I'm in the student view right now. Here's the instructor view, just a few more options than that. And so for the student view, very basic, very laid out. You have the options of putting things into chapters where it opens to a new page like this, or you can choose drop-down menus, which I think is great because it goes for faster loading times for the students, and they're not always waiting for graphics and things to load on the page. So my layout is that I provide the chapter notes at the top, followed by annotated filled in notes. And then here's my corresponding video notes that I made. However, you can attach anything that you want to here. It's nice for students to be able to watch it in the same window, or they can click on the title and open in a new tab to make it larger. I also have the textbook link, and this takes you directly to OpenStax. These changes are made in real time. If you find any grammatical errors or content errors on this actual OpenStax page, this is the exact same thing as the printed textbook. You can see here.
You're muted, Holly.
Thank you. We'll stop the video there. The video is about 7 minutes long and it is part of the PowerPoint, so you can feel free to watch it after this presentation.
It's kind of very old school as far as there's some
So here's some instructor feedback that we have received. And as you can see, one of the biggest reasons faculty here like the My Open Math is that it is free to students. Students don't have to pay the cost of My Math Lab, which in some cases is $90 to $110 for My Math Lab. Another reason is it's easier for faculty to be able to fix any errors that they find, and they have the flexibility with creating their own problems and videos to align with what they are actually teaching in their classroom.
And when we looked at student feedback for the My Open Math, which in fall 2022 for intermediate algebra, about 10% used the physical textbook, so the printed textbook that was included in the rental program, or the students might have purchased separately. 30% used the online textbook practice components that were embedded in the My Open Math. And 100% use the interactive practice and homework features, which faculty told us was above and beyond anything that they've seen as far as engagement goes with My Math Lab. And 10% used an outside supplemental resource such as Khan Academy to find different ways and different information about doing their problems. And 60% of students used the calendar option as well as the instructor provided PDF version. And in that video, we saw on the front page, when you open up My Open Math, there's a calendar that lists all of the different things that are coming up, due dates, different tests and components within the course. And students really found that helpful. That was something that we hear again and again that they liked, was it was easy to see what was going on. They were able to keep track of things and not kind of lose their place in the course. So some instructor feedback that we got here was, and this is a quote, "The thing I like the most about My Open Math, aside from the benefits for my students having a free homework platform, is that I can read something math related in the news in the morning and have a question on that topic written and posted by the afternoon. During the pandemic, many different math related topics came up, for example, percent increase and decrease, and I was able to turn these quickly into homework questions for my students, which makes the course material more relevant for them and interesting for me." And we've heard throughout the conference so far that making students have that connection point with their materials and making it meaningful for them is a key part of learning and a key part of building open into your course design. And this was a really great way for students to see that math is happening out there in the real world. They can see that it's in the news and they can engage with it on a personal level, which makes it more impactful for them moving forward, especially as they go forward in their life outside of the college.
Here is some student feedback, and these are quotes from students. "I love that you could view a written example. This helped a ton when I would get stuck on any of the problems. I also like that you could redo the problem until you got it correct. This helped tremendously with the learning process as you could figure out what you did wrong by viewing the steps and correct it." Another student, this is from, "I like that it provided great step-by-step examples that helped with doing homework assignments, along with providing many opportunities to redo questions so we could get full points and the late day passes. I also like how there was a calendar that turned red once the due date was coming up." And so as you can see, one of the common themes there is being able to redo homework assignments. And this is seen in from other students. The math department sends out surveys after the course has completed to the students that were in their courses. And that is one of the biggest things that students really enjoy about My Open Math is the ability to redo the problems and the late day passes. And faculty have also stated that they like the late day passes because this allows the students, instead of going to the instructor and saying, "Hey, can I turn in something late," and getting permission, to know that they just have 2, 3, how many ever late day passes are allowed by that instructor. They just have the ability to go in, click late day pass, and use that to submit an assignment late. And then again, that calendar, which is also a reoccurring positive from both faculty and the student perspective.
And some student feedback that we heard: "My Open Math is cool, and I like that you can get help and redo each question. It helps you learn and takes some stress off of doing the homework. And you can go back in and redo it as many times as you need to, so that you get it right and you can actually learn from the homework rather than just focusing on answering questions in a specific way. I'm also a big proponent of the FOSS, which is free and open source software movement. So having the open source alternative to the utter scam that is MyMathLab has been a big positive. It doesn't directly support my learning, but still it's a really big plus. And we see that as more students take part in these courses, they're talking to other students and expressing their appreciation of the content and expressing how it's impacted them in a positive way. And quote, it's more forgiving than other platforms they've worked with when it comes to entering questions incorrectly. For example, they like that it prompts them when they've used the wrong variable or haven't simplified an answer fully. And I think there's more flexibility to take agency over your work as a student in this platform. Like Holly said, with the late passes, students know that they have them, the instructor knows that they have them, and if something comes up, they can just use their late pass as they see fit. And with the flexibility with the homework, they're also able to work on things, get things the way that they want them, and get things correct in a way that works for them.
So here's a cost savings for an elementary algebra with apps section. So it was 2 sections that were offered, 2 different faculty members were teaching. They had the same enrollment numbers. The one section that used OER versus the other section did not use OER. So as you can see, regardless of what materials is used, the student did pay $21 in rental fees because again, we have the rental here and it's a 3-credit course. The section without OER materials, the student did have to pay for the MyMathLab from Pearson, and that was $93.30 before tax, versus the section that used OER did not have to pay anything for their courseware. Both sections had 25 students enrolled, and so you can see in the section without OER, the combined students did pay $2,857.50, versus the OER section, the students only paid their rental fees of $525. And so replacing just that one piece, that MyMathLab, saves students $2,332.50. And keep in mind, this was just for an elementary algebra with app section, one section. And so this is one thing that we are really using and promoting at Madison College is this cost savings to students, because those access codes are getting so expensive. And with the cost of everything else for our students, rent, gas, food, being able to save the students that amount of money is huge.
And so, sorry, Holly, can I just add a note to that last slide? So when we're looking at cost savings, we've come from it from an equity standpoint. 50% of our students are first generation students. A significant number are working parents, and the average age of our students is 28. We also have a large veteran population. So knowing that our students often are heavily affected by textbook costs and access codes, we know that that making sure that everybody has that access on day one is crucial, and being able to access it from an affordable standpoint is crucial, which a lot of times we hear from publishers who have access codes that are free, or publishers that have access codes that are available on day one, that's kind of their argument and their pushback with OER. But this is truly a way that students can get access day one. They don't have to worry about paying. They don't have to worry about any other barriers.
And so some of the ways, because again, our students have stated that they prefer having a physical book to go with their math courses. And so here are some of the ways that we do obtain OER materials to go with those courses. If it's OpenStax, we purchase the book from OpenStax. However, not all of our OER for the math department is OpenStax. Some the instructors do create their own content. And so then we use our print services department to print whatever the faculty writes for a book, they print that out there and bind it for us, and then we include that in the rental program. Otherwise, if the binding is special or is too large of a book, we do have a local print service business that can do larger books, and that's Grimm Book Bindery. And so a lot of times, if college does not have a print service department, you potentially could find a local business in your area that would do print materials for you. And most of the time, those local businesses do the binding of those books for a lower cost than even purchasing, a book from a publisher. So you're still saving money.
All right, thanks, Holly. And I'm just going to share my screen briefly here so that we can see kind of what we've done with the math department here. So this is a page that I shared in the chat, and I can share again. And basically to highlight the different components and the different things that have happened with my math lab and the open resources at the college, is I've created this LibGuide that highlights the different things that we think are beneficial and other departments could get inspiration from. So we've included some of the quotes here that we read you, as well as the video, and we do share out the cost savings because we think that's an important component of it. And we also include a link to the different textbooks that the departments have adopted, and then a link to where to get your questions answered. And this was a really big thing at the college when we're looking at expanding OER resources, is that faculty can look at this, they can say, oh, this is really cool, we didn't know this was possible. And it's a good talking point for our admin that they can say, this is worth the effort, this is worth putting our energy behind. And I just wanted to share too that when I did the OER evaluations, I used a worksheet, and I used these components as ways to jump off from that starting point. And one was the ability to obtain print copies was very important. The ability to see positive peer reviews, so faculty knew that the content was well received, that it was credible, that it wasn't just junk that somebody had thrown on the internet. Wide adoption by universities and colleges, and flexible content options. And what I did was I went through and I found the different textbooks, I found the link in the reviews, and then I added in different content or different other notes here. So whether there was a course cartridge that would fit into our LMS or other auxiliary materials. And I did that for the different sections here. So this one, you can see I was doing calculus, I was doing math for elementary teachers, and a few other ones. And then I would pass this off to the math department, and they gave me feedback that said that this was really easy for them to use, that it was a way to be able to maximize their time when they're evaluating the textbooks. And additionally, on this page up at the top here, there's this tab, Searching for OER. And this includes a worksheet that I've created and used in a lot of different contexts here at the college, where I go through and I identify keywords, I look at the different resource types, and it's a really great way for faculty to be able to take off running on it, and it saves them a lot of time. Was that our last slide, Holly? Oh, you're on mute.
Yes, the next slide was questions. Oh, Rachel, you're on mute.
We have a theme here. Okay, so there's some questions in the chat. One was, do you folks have shells, auxiliary materials, math problem sets, or other test bank resources you might be able to recommend or link to at the end? I have 4 math faculty who like OpenStax but feel the problems are not great and don't have the time to develop their own, and so continue to use paid text due to auxiliary materials. I can answer that. I don't have any specific resources that I would recommend, but I do think if you're in an area where there's a potential for collaboration, faculty who enjoy that component or have time to work on that can often do that work without having to have all the faculty involved in it. Or if you're like us, where we're part of the Wisconsin Technical College system, there's potential for collaboration across the system level or at the system level. And that's where we've seen the creation of auxiliary materials. But I do find that that is often left out of the conversation when we talk about OER and implementing OER, is all of the additional labor and work that's involved when you adopt a new textbook and when you're switching to different platforms. So I don't have a specific answer to that, unfortunately, but I will say that I do find a lot of auxiliary resources in OER Commons, and I have nothing that comes to mind specifically, but that is one place that I do go when I do want to find those. And the PowerPoint slides are currently linked in Oxford Abstracts under this session, so you can feel free to download those, and those have the links that are embedded in them. And another question, is there something similar for introductory accounting courses? I'm currently using My Accounting Lab by Pearson. Holly, do you have any insight into that?
There are some OER for accounting, but right now our accounting department is not using the OER just because they feel they do not have enough time to create the added content that would be needed for the current OER out there. There is some at a basic level, but that is one thing that accounting wants to work on here at the college, but they just need to find some time to add additional content to the current OER.
And then a question, can you talk a little more about your book rental program and how it works? And how many books do you buy each semester? Do students return the books in good condition?
Yeah, so it is a college-ran rental program. Again, it's $7 per degree credit. And part of what makes the program successful is that we do have a requirement that the books in the rental program are used for at least 3 years. The materials, have to be like a physical book. They cannot be one-time use like access codes. Majority of our books do come back in good condition. We have some outdoor rental drop boxes as well as indoor rental drop boxes. Over time, there is some wear and tear and they do get damaged from the drop boxes, but usually we see them more around year 3 to 4 because some materials are used longer. We have anywhere between, depending on the semester, 4 to 6% non-return rate. So pretty good overall. This current semester, we rented out, it was 22,140 books for the fall of 2023 semester to students. And then some of the books, for like the nursing vet tech program, those books end up staying with the students the entire time that they're in that program. So those just get kind of auto renewed. Otherwise, the majority of the other books are returned at the end of the semester to us.
And do you share your My Open Math courses with other institutions?
We could reach out to the math department to see if that's something they would be willing to do.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. And there was also a question about looking at open source problems on the web. And I don't think that that's something that we have done yet, but we were going to talk at the end, and I think we skipped that slide accidentally, was recently the state government in Wisconsin allocated $3 million to development of OER within the Wisconsin Technical College system, and this was a huge win for us. Our student government has been lobbying for it since 2018, and we're working on different key courses and different key areas of study across the system. But what that's been doing is connecting faculty in the similar subject areas that haven't been able to connect in the past. And I think that we're going to be seeing more of that collaboration in the system, which I'm hoping will kind of ripple out into the community as we go forward on this project. All right, and as a student who took advantage of textbook rental in Wisconsin schools, it was flawless and beyond inexpensive. So that's great to hear. And as someone points out in the chat, there are similar book rental programs at UW Stout, which is in northern Wisconsin and Appalachia State in North Carolina. And many of those programs have been shifting to digital or a mix of print and digital. And as Holly was saying, there's been an emphasis on print textbooks within our specific institution, which I know it varies across institutions as to what their students prefer, but that has been something that we've heard our students prefer and our faculty also prefer. But that of course may change. And as we go forward, when we reach the end of the 3-year adoption cycle, our faculty can reevaluate that too. And unfortunately, we don't have really a way at this time to assess the total OER adoption and impact at the college just by the way that faculty report their adoptions. So that's something that also that we need to take a look at. And there was a request for our emails in the chat, which I'll type mine in here. And I'll also reshare that link to our guide in the chat, which also has our contact in it. Any other questions? And there was some suggestions for different resources on accounting in the chat as well, which thank you for sharing that. All right, well, with that, thank you everyone for joining today. We really appreciate it. And we are always happy to help you with any questions that you might have, or also hear any suggestions or success stories that you've had in this area. So thanks everyone.